guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Serena.
And I'm James.
And today we are talking about what you need to know about the third party. If you were tuned into our video last week, or maybe it was the week before that, I'll link it up here. We talked all about the third party, but we talked about the third party a little bit more from the karmic perspective. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about, kind of just a general third party and what happens when your twin sleeps with another person, or if you sleep with another person, or, if you're dating somebody else, like that kind of stuff. From obviously it's always from our experience, our perspective.
Yeah.
We can't speak on anybody else's perspective. So we're just going to talk about from our perspective. So obviously, if you guys have watched our other video, you already know what a third party is. You guys know third party is essentially, how we talk about it is anybody that's not really your twin flame while we're in the dynamic. So it's kind of like, it could be the karmic, it could be just another random person, it could be whoever. But it's like somebody that's
not us.
That's not us. Yeah. I was going to say like interfering in the relationship, but I didn't want to put it that way because that makes it sound negative, and it's not always negative. Like it's sometimes it feels negative, but it's actually like still for the highest good in a way, like even if it's like a karmic partner, even if there's lessons that need to be learned from that. The third party is generally seen as really negative, and like you have to get rid of the third party in the twin flame dynamic. The mentality should be more so like, okay, clearly the third party is showing up for a reason, that like we all need to look at those things, So like for me, last week when we were talking about like the karmic, right? There was very serious lessons I needed to learn from the karmic. And those were also serious lessons that
I had learned.
You had learned, but also lessons that triggered you, because it triggered you a lot. So I think also that was a trust building exercise for us, because you had kind of seen that play out before in one of your previous relationships. And so there was a lot of like, I think a lot of emotions that came up for you.
Yeah, it brought up a lot of things that I didn't enjoy. There was a lot of aspects that I had moved past. And for me, I'm one of those people that once I move past something, I don't always like to go back to it, even though I always acknowledge that it's there. But if I've worked through it, I'm like, okay, I've learned my lessons from that. I'm now going to move to the next thing, so I'm not being dragged back by the same thing continuously. But sometimes it is good to go back and just have a look at things again, even if you don't want to, and then kind of just move forward once again and take new lessons from it.
Interestingly, I have once upon a time like saw something about in relationships, like when you break up with somebody, when you get into the next relationship, you like pick up the lesson where you left off. Yeah. So I think that's also like an interesting way to look at it, because when you broke up with this person, it was in a pretty dramatic place.
Yeah,
and then,
I'd say so.
And then when you think about meeting me, you almost kind of picked up where you left off. So it was like you had gone through this lesson with this person, then you had the time alone to heal and to integrate. And then when you picked up the next relationship, like...
When we met, things got moving.
Yeah, then it was like picking up almost where you left off. And then, us having to build that trust based on wounds that you had previously and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, yeah, to a certain degree, there definitely was a part of that picked up again with it, especially with the dynamic that you're in when we first met. But at the same time as well, it felt very different, because in the previous one, I was actually in a relationship, where this time I was actually the third party, so I wasn't actually in it. So there was even though it was similar, it was also very different at the same time. There's definitely an aspect that you do from one relation to the next, build on it as you go along, because you do learn a lot of lessons from the previous ones that help you move forward into your future relationships until you find that person that you actually want to spend your time with.
Yeah, so going back to the idea of like the third party, right? So both of us funnily enough, probably days apart.
It was probably, yeah.
And this is why we like to say that in the twin flame relationship, like everything is like very equal in a way, you know, like there's not, and I find this even in our day-to-day life, like one person will go through something and then the next person goes through it the next day or like the next hour or the next week or something like that. Like our lessons really like go back to back and they're very equal and we're constantly getting to see like the other person's perspective. So I don't know if we've maybe talked about this in one previous video, but I can't really remember. So
I'm not sure.
After we met and after we split up and after we realized that that I wasn't coming back. Yeah, after that, we both had the opportunity to sleep with other people.
Yeah.
And we both took that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so today, this is what we're really talking about. We're talking about, okay, what happens when you sleep with other people? And I'll start with my story and my perspective, and then we can talk about what happened in your story and your perspective. And obviously, you guys too, like keep the I don't know, the identities of the people that we had these experiences with, because who knows who's ever going to watch this at some point. We're not going to give away, we're not going to say the names, we're not going to give away like too many intense details, but like give you the gist of what happened. So for me, I was making the decision to come back to Coffee Shack and then decided not to. And then that night, I was staying, like for the first time in the entire trip, I had decided I didn't want to stay at the same hostel that my partner at that time that I was breaking up with and our travel friend, I didn't want to stay at the same place as them. I wanted to be by myself so I could really get that space and like try and break away from the relationship and make decisions that were right for me. So spending a lot of time alone apart from them, like across the town. There was like a town in between us, and so I was spending time across the town on the other side of the lake, and they were spending time on the other side. And so at this place that I stayed at that night, I was literally leaving like the next day and to go back to the States. And so that night I had met like the owner of the hotel, his like son or something like that, and I was struggling to get my printing my passport tickets to leave. And so then this kid ended up coming up to me and saying, "Oh, do you need help?" And I was like, "Sure." And then they're already, this was like a few days or so after New Year's Eve, so everyone was in like party mode. And so they were already like a few tequilas in, and they're like, "Oh, well, you gotta come drink with us afterwards," and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, "No, I really don't want to. Like, my heart is broken." And I'm like, you know, trying to make these big major decisions in my life. Like, there was a part of me that was like so loud and clear in my ear. And I'm not someone that normally gets like telepathic communication, but like that's not my gifts. But I heard in my ear, like, "This is your last chance for the rest of your life." And I was like, oh damn. So coming off of a relationship where, you know, I was in an open relationship, you know, and having that freedom to be with different partners, even though it wasn't super consistent, it was just, you know, that's a freedom. And then so this, to hear that was like, oh shit, like this is the last person I'm ever gonna be with apart from like my twin flame, which I didn't, you know, fully subscribe to that notion at that time. And I was like, it was an intense thing to hear, like, here's your last shot, take it if you want it. And so I did, and it was, you know, not the greatest experience in the world.
That's the part that made me feel very good.
It wasn't the greatest experience in the world. The thing that I came to, that I realized like spiritually that I really needed at that time, was I was so invested in my karmic, and he had so much pull and like energy over me. And then of course meeting you changed everything. So then you had so much pull over me. So I had these two people that are like pulling me apart at this time. And then introducing this third person into it, kind of like, well, as you guys know, it's sex for a reason, sacred energy exchange, right? So it was like, then instead of having these two energies within me, I had this energy within me. And so it was like, okay, I had so much more internal clarity because I didn't have this person and this person pulling on me. It was like, okay, now there's this other random person here, and I can feel the difference of his energy to your guys' energy. And so then that made me be able to experience my own energy. And that's what actually caused me to fully act on going home, was that like that experience, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I can actually feel myself again, and I actually know like what I need to do for me. And so yeah, so that was a really interesting experience. Funnily enough, I felt more guilty towards you than I did towards my karmic partner, even though he and I were also like broken up and breaking up at that point.
Yeah.
And we were in an open relationship on top of that. But like I felt more guilty that like I did that to you than anything. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but then that guilt, I think, ate at both of us in the beginning of our relationship, and then we ended up going through a few things that made us like bring that to the table. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Awkward.
So let's go to your experience of like how did it come about? Like, was it to get back at me? Was it like, you know, like how did that all happen?
Well, for me, the person that I got involved with in that time frame, I'd actually known for a while. You actually knew this person as well. You had met her. So it's someone that I'd known for a while. You had met actually when you were there. So that was also another weird part. This person was also from America, which I can only see the irony in that now. But basically for me was, I mean, I wasn't really looking for anything at that point. I just found out that you were now no longer coming back to come see me in Coffee Shack. So at that point I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. You were talking about going back home to America, and I was like, okay, well, you know, now you're going halfway across the world, there's even less chance of me seeing you. Know you're on the same continent as I'm anymore, even though you're so far north of me that it's not even funny. And I don't know, I was in a bit of a, I guess you could say, a dark place, in a good-ish way, I guess. It wasn't really like a bad way, but I mean, I just wasn't super happy, because I thought this person was going to be coming back, and I was going to, you know, see if something was going to happen with us. And this friend of mine, we were chatting, and same thing, we had lots of tequila and chatting all the rest.
Was it actually tequila?
We did have a few tequilas and a few beers and a few other things, and me being me, a lot of times when my friends were walking back to where they were, because they weren't staying with us at Coffee Shack, I'd walk back with them because I didn't want them to walk home alone. I was like, you know what, that's just the way I was raised. So I had walked her back. Then when we got back to where she was staying, we had a few more drinks and started chatting, and that's when something happened, which it still bites at me even today. Speaking about it, I can still feel it in me. I'm just like, still annoys me, because it's not, I felt very guilty during the entire experience. I did not enjoy it. It wasn't anything that actually did anything for me in particular, except make me feel very guilty. Didn't even finish. It was it was a very awkward experience, the whole thing for me. And then on top of that, then what was it, like a week, 2 weeks later, we started kind of conversing again once you got home, and you had sorted some things out, and I had kept on working and sorted some things out for myself, and it ate at me a lot. And it was something that was always in the back of my mind, even when you were saying, okay, now you're going to come here again, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. And obviously you did come, and during those first, however long that period was before we spoke about it, which I don't think was a super long time, I think it was maybe like a month and a half at most or so, it was always in the back of my mind, kind of gnawing at me. It was just like biting at my heels, like, you did this, just remember this. And like, so when we eventually did speak about it, it was a huge weight off my shoulders, but I felt incredibly guilty. I mean, we weren't even in a relationship. There was nothing that happened. Technically speaking, I didn't do anything wrong, and I knew that. But for some reason, there was this feeling that was like, you fucked up. And I just couldn't get away from that nagging feeling in the back of my head, and it really just ate away at me for a long time. And still did afterwards, after we spoke about it. And I mean, obviously we're a long way away from that now, but even talking about it now, I can still feel those same emotions inside of me, of like that little bit of guilt for doing it, even though I still know there was nothing wrong with it, and you're fine with it, and fine with how things would transpire, and the fact that you had done exactly the same thing I had done. Not that there's ever a tit for tat kind of thing, but yeah, it was, I think it was a necessary thing for us to both have done. If I could go back, would I do it again? No. For me personally, yeah, I don't know. It never really did anything for me. It just made me feel very guilty and almost in some ways ashamed of myself.
Yeah. So would you say the negativity outweighed the positivity?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. So for me, did the negativity outweigh the positivity? I think it was really imperative. It helped me make the decisions that I needed to make, and that was really important. Yeah. But I will say, when I got back to South Africa, it did eat away at me also. And when I was in the States, I think there was a moment in time, because I was taking this anti-parasite medication from, if you guys watched all of our previous videos, you know that when I was in Malawi, we swam in the lake, and then you had to take this anti-parasite medication. So that medication, coupled with the fact that I was like skin and bones after traveling for 2 years, my period had gotten messed up. And I remember being so scared that that was going to be like my consequence of doing this thing, right? Like I thought like, oh, I slept with this other person and I shouldn't have. Kind of betrayed you. And so what if I get pregnant with this person's baby? Mm-hmm. And then like,
that's where I thought it comes from.
And at that time, I still had my birth control was still in, but still, like, it was in the forefront of my mind, like, oh my God, like, would he take me back if I had another man's baby? And that's a conversation for another time that I don't even want to know the answer to.
I don't know if I can give you an answer for that, a truthful one at least.
So, you know, that was really scary to me. And then when I came back to South Africa and we were in Union, we kept having these things that were coming up. Like I was getting like UTIs, and like, to me, it was like this truth felt like it was just simmering under the surface. And I think because it was still at the back of our minds. You see, there's a rainbow out there.
It was that guilt.
Yeah, it was that guilt that's just like simmering under there. And I felt like I was holding mine in my womb space because I felt very like unclean in a way. So I kept getting like these UTIs, and then that would turn into PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. So if you're a twin and you have like physical ailments going on when you get into union with your twin, or after meeting your twin or something like that, or physical things keep coming up, look at that stuff. Look at where you're holding guilt, shame, blame, like all of these things.
It's there for a reason.
And I remember, like, there was a part of me that also wanted to blame you, because it's that mirroring thing. Like, I know what I had done, and I kept being like I was really nervous I had an STD or something like that, so I even gotten checked for an STD when I came to South Africa. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
The whole thing. Literally, I did everything, because I was, like, dealing with it on a physical level when we should have been dealing with it on, like, an emotional level.
Communicative level,
yeah. And so then we did finally... At one point, I was like, okay, I just can't.
You brought it up.
Yeah, I can't sleep anymore.
I
was like, I can't sleep anymore. Like, I need to talk about this. And so I remember we were literally like laying in bed, and I was like, can I tell you something? And I was like, I was so nervous to get this off my chest.
I kind of felt it coming as well, and that because I obviously had that as well. I could feel something heavy was coming, but it was such a weight off the shoulders. I mean, like you said, for you, yours was like your UTIs and all of that. For me, it was, I just had this very heavy feeling.
Yeah. Like you couldn't fully be yourself almost.
Yeah, to a good degree. I just felt like I was going to say something that was going to bring it up and it was going to be wrong, and then it was going to be a big blub in our face, and there you were going to go off on a jetpack and back to America, you know.
Yeah, because things were still very like tentative.
They were still new.
Us. Yeah, it was very new. So
we're only just figuring out where we were.
So it's scary to bring something up like that.
It was very scary, and when you did, I was very, very happy you did, and at the same time very pissed off that you had done that. But then I couldn't be angry at you because I did the same thing. So I was like, I'm angry at you, but I'm angry at me, but I can't be angry at either one of us. It was a very confusing time.
Yeah, I remember being super happy that you did. I was
that confused me at the time as well.
And that actually, like, in a way, I think because of where I came from, you know, like that in a way made me more attracted to you, because it wasn't like you were just sitting around not living your life. Like, that showed me that you still were like doing what you wanted to do. You know, like I think one of my fears, because I had been with a soulmate prior to this that reminded me a lot of you, or that you reminded me a lot of, or whatever, however you want to say that. And one of the things that he did was he really stopped living his life when we were together. And so I was really nervous that you were going to stop doing that because of the relationship. And that was like just one of my random fears. So I think also the fact that you told me like, oh no, I did this thing too. I was like, oh my God, like he's not afraid to still like live. Yeah. Because so many people in relationships do that. They get together and then they become smaller, more condensed versions of themselves. They stop doing the things that make them happy. They start, you know, going codependent with their partners, which we've gone through periods of that too.
But you do naturally go through those periods as well.
Yeah.
But I think as well, I mean, for me personally, during that period, what made me so angry at myself was I had not done anything for such a long time. It'd been like 2 months that I was like, no, I'm staying away from fucking everybody. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be a well-behaved boy. And then I buggered it up. So that, yeah. All those things that they play through your mind continuously. And I don't think it would have gone it could have gone any other way if it wasn't you. If it wasn't someone else, it probably would never have worked out that way. And I'm very grateful for how it turned out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. Yeah, no, I think it's just, you know, it's one of those things that when you're in it and you're dealing with the third parties and you're dealing with maybe your twin is dating somebody else, you have to keep in mind that, like, it's not personal. It's not to hurt you. Like, neither of us were with somebody else to hurt the other one. Like you said earlier, it wasn't a tit for tat kind of thing. It was like, okay, for me, I was like, this is what I need to do. Spirit very clearly was like, hey, look, this is your last chance. So if you want to live it up one more time, live it up. But it was like crap. But still, if that's what you want to do. And for you, it was the same. You know, both experiences were very, very similar. It was like, you know, the other person wanted it more than we did. There was too much alcohol involved. We both were in kind of a dark place, you know, so it was like a very similar experience. And then we both felt a lot of guilt afterwards, and that guilt just kind of bubbled under the surface until it was ready to like fully come out.
I felt my guilt from when it started.
Yeah.
The very first moment that we started kissing, I already started feeling guilty at that point, but the alcohol took over.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible excuse.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not an excuse for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what happened, and, you know, I think people that are in this experience right now, like, no, like, yes, it is painful, but also your twin might be feeling that same guilt. So, like, just because you don't have contact with them doesn't necessarily mean that they're not feeling something around it. You know, they might be dating somebody else, or they might have slept with somebody else, but the thing is, like, you don't know exactly what they're feeling on the inside, right? So they might be dating somebody else and they might be feeling completely wrong about it, but they still have to get through these lessons before they can get to you, right? And they need that experience of feeling guilty so they can understand. Like, for me, infidelity's in my family line. So I needed to be very clear about what that feels like on the other side, so that when we get together, I know I'm not going to make that same choice that my ancestors made, right? So
get rid of the baggage.
Right, get rid of the baggage completely. And a lot of times the only way to really get rid of the baggage is to play it out in the physical. Now, some of us can play it out in the astral and the emotional, and we can do the work that way, but we are also humans. So we're going to work through things in the physical. So if there is a third party that's going on for you and your twin, you have to know that, like, that's going to be there until that karma has been played out, or until the lessons are learned, right? So don't think that it's all your twin. There's also something in there for you, right? And your job is to look at, what am I participating in? Because if I'm part of this twin flame dynamic, but there's something in the middle of that, I'm also playing into that somehow, right? And it's your job to uncover how you might be playing into that and what lessons are there for you. And when you heal that, that goes away, right? And you no longer need that. You've kind of expired that lesson. Do you have anything else to say on the topic?
No, I think you've just about covered all of it.
Okay. So your opinion on the topic is, if you had the chance to do it again, absolutely, you would not replay that moment.
For me, it for what I got out of it, I wouldn't change it, but if I could go back, I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting perspective. I don't know that I necessarily feel the same way, just because I know it brought me to where I am.
Yeah.
But did I appreciate now I can see the rainbow on this side. Because you can see the whole thing from there. Did I appreciate, like where it brought me? Yes. Did I appreciate how it made me feel? Absolutely not. Like,
yeah,
the drama of the first month or so of our relationship, with all the physical stuff that I went through and the mental stuff, knowing about the physical stuff, was like so not worth it.
No, definitely
So
not.
if you're wondering whether you should do it or not, only you can make that decision. But
good luck.
That was our experience with the third party, and the third party apart from the karmic. But yeah, so we hope that this video helped you. If you're looking for more resources, definitely check the box below. If you're looking to work one-on-one with either one of us, those are in there. So you can check that out. I have my free resource, which is my Breaking Karmic Ties ebook. This is like quite arguably the most important thing you'll do on the twin flame journey, because we talk about karma in almost every single video.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to move your twin flame journey along, if you're trying to know like what to do, where to go, that's a good resource for you. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Comment below what you'd like to see. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.